Hello and welcome to the Canyon Chasers Garage. Today we're going to be talking about how to remove a rear wheel. If you've ever had to take your motorcycle into the shop for a tire change, you know that the service rates of removing that wheel can really make an already somewhat expensive process even that much more money. So today what we're going to do is we're going to take the SV650, which is known as being one of the most difficult rear tires to remove, to use that as our test subject as we walk you through that process. So let's begin. Once the motorcycle is up and off the ground, we need to remove the nut on the end of the axle. Most times this cotter pin is going to be bent up over the end of the axle itself, but pretty much all you use is a pair of pliers to remove this cotter pin. They're only good one time, so make sure you make a run to your local hardware store or auto parts store to get more cotter pins. And they come in lots of different sizes and stuff like that. Sometimes if you're really careful, you might get 2 uses out of them, but they're just a few pennies each, so you may as well just replace them each time for the extra bit of security. On our track bike, we kind of went away from the cotter pin altogether and went with one of these cool little clip things that you can also get at most any other hardware stores. And this is a motorcycle that sees a lot of tire changes, so it just kind of makes it easier to get it on and off a little bit quicker. But for most street applications, the cotter pin is plenty adequate. The next thing is to just loosen the nut. We're going to use a 22 millimeter wrench because we like the extra leverage. You can do this with a set of sockets too. We found that your local Harbor Freight, you can get a set of these big giant metric wrenches for just a few bucks, and it's amazing how handy they are for some of these big nuts on motorcycles. Especially with a lot of the new bikes coming out that have hollow axles for less weight, the nuts are really, really big, sometimes up into 46 millimeters for the nut that holds the rear wheel on. So a set of these can be really invaluable. But basically all this is a method of applying the right amount of force. Just put it on the end and we put lots of weight into it to get it to come off. In some cases, the nut on the other side will start to spin. And if it does, all you have to do is take another wrench and hold it on the other side to hold it in place. But mostly you just loosen it off. Make sure you keep track of all the washers and spacers in the sequence that they come off. They're on there a certain way for a reason. In this case, we have our crown nut, just a simple washer, and then a plate. This plate, if you're looking behind there, it helps keep everything in place, and there's little markings, hash markings on the axle that you use to align the rear wheel sideways for your chain alignment. We'll worry about that later. But take them all off in sequence. Next, we need to push the axle out. You're going to want to bang on it with something metal. That's going to be wrong. What you want to do is find something soft, a piece of wood. We use a dead blow hammer. And if you listen, I don't know if you can hear that, but it has sand inside it, and it's got these really soft plastic nubs on the end. So we're just going to step over here. We're just going to give it a tap to get the axle to come out just a little bit. There's really no pretty or elegant way to do this. You just kind of grab and pull. Sometimes they're going to be really sticky. Sometimes they're going to require a lot of force. The only word of wisdom is to not try to pull the motorcycle over on top of you. So let's see how well this one comes out and how good or bad I look trying to get this axle out. It does sometimes help to hold the wheel with your other hand. You can see probably that movement to try to keep everything in line as you pull on the axle to get it off. That's it. Axle out. There are 2 sides of the wheel you have to worry about, the chain and the brake. We're going to deal with the chain first. Both sides are going to have some level of spacer that keeps everything in place. Pull those out and keep them in the proper order. We need to make the wheel move back. We got to get it off of there. So what we're going to do is we're just going to pull the chain off of the sprocket and just kind of hang it there. Once that chain's off the sprocket, we can move to the other side and deal with the disc. At this point, all we pretty much need to do is pull the wheel directly back and everything should clear. But this is also why the SV wheel is so difficult. As we roll the wheel back, this big giant spacer comes falling out. That's not a big deal now, but putting it back in is nightmarish because it sits right here and then it slides up behind the bracket that holds the caliper in place. So pretty much at this point, we just pull the wheel out and it's done. Next, we pull the wheel out from the motorcycle. You got to be really careful of your disc on the one side. You don't want to bang it up against anything or twist the wheel too forcefully with the caliper still on the disc because it'll bend it. So we just want to pull it out gently, but you do got to kind of rotate the wheel a little bit to clear everything. Let's see how this goes. That one went easy. Now I put a wheel up on the workbench just to show you something. Before you take your wheel into the shop to have the tire changed, you need to remove your sprocket. This is actually extraordinarily simple. Your sprocket should just slide right out. Underneath it, you can see we have all these little rubber things and these teeth on the sprocket. This is called your cush drive. Now, this is a good time to inspect these little rubber guys. They're really only good for about 10 years at the most. So if your motorcycle's 10 years old, you should consider changing these things. What they do is when you're riding your motorcycle and you bang the throttle or you hit a bump or do something kind of abrupt, the rubber kind of absorbs some of that energy so it doesn't damage your chain or your wheel. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take our sprocket away, and then we're just going to pull these little rubber guys out. They should come right on out. And they're kind of keyed. You can see like there's a little dowel there that goes into the hole. And we just pull those out and we'll just put them with the sprocket. And that's pretty much it for removing a wheel. We'll be back after we change this tire for the hard part, which is putting the sucker back together. Stay tuned.